The latest scandal in business involves corporate leaders setting up paper companies and tax havens. What has led to these incidents? President Park Geun-hye's first 100 days in office. We find out whether the government's economic policies are on the right track. We assess the economic plans of the recent government during the president's first 100 days in office. The next generation telecommunication technology, LTE-A, is coming our way. How far will LTE technology reach with LTE-A already 10 times faster? Happycall is the world's first double-sided pressure pan, which has captured the hearts of global consumers. What has made the frying pan revolution for Happycall? North Korea's medical situation is deteriorating as its economic situation worsens. We get testimonies about the current medical situation in North Korea.
Hi, I'm Andrew Salmon. Welcome to Bizline. We're coming to you today from the Yangjichon Stream here in southern Seoul, one of the few spots in high-tech, hyper-fast Gangnam where it's possible to kick back, slow down and relax in natural surroundings. Now, we've got a variety of business features coming up in the show, but as always, let's start things off by taking a look at all the business and economic stories that have been making the headlines across South Korea this week.
Representatives of labor management and government have struck a deal to create more part-time positions and extend the retirement age to 60 in line with the president's goal of lifting the employment rate to 70%. It has been agreed to cut long working hours and executive pay and fill 3% of public sector positions with young workers by 2016. The South Korean government is on full alert with another nuclear reactor scheduled for maintenance, which will likely add on to the country's power shortage crisis. According to officials from the Korea Power Exchange, the country's power reserves are predicted to drop below 300 million kilowatts in the following week, which will force the government into issuing a power shortage warning. This estimate comes after 2 nuclear reactors were forced to halt operations due to faulty parts and fake warranties. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced it is taking additional measures to cut the country's electricity consumption, but added that it might not be enough to prevent power reserves from running out. Korea's finance minister said it is inappropriate for Japan to depreciate its national currency, the yen, for its own economic benefits. In an interview with a French newspaper, Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok urged Japan to rethink its expansionary monetary policy, saying it also has a negative impact on the economies of neighboring countries. Korea's trade balance stayed in the black for the 16th straight month in May, hitting a near 3-year high. Korea's trade ministry says the trade surplus stood at slightly over $6 billion in May, the largest monthly surplus since October of 2010. Exports were up 3.2% from last year at $48 billion. Recent figures show Korea's consumer prices have stabilized, growing at the slowest pace in 14 years last month. According to the Finance Ministry, consumer prices only edged up 1% in May compared to the same month last year. Experts say favorable weather conditions and a decrease in global oil prices contributed to the drop in prices of agricultural and petroleum goods.
In South Korea today, there are believed to be tens of billions of dollars circulating around an illicit underground economy. And in recent weeks, the news has been dominated by stories alleging that Korean conglomerate leaders have been setting up paper companies in tax havens across the world. This news, just the latest in a long line of misdemeanors by Korea's super rich and business elite, has sent a shockwave through society. But what's the backstory here? In Bizline, we ask whether these revelations have any connection with the Park Geun-hye administration's stated policy of taxing the underground economy.
The local media have recently reported names and companies that are allegedly involved in suspicious offshore activities to avoid tax payment. The biggest newsmaker was the prosecutor's investigation into CJ Group, which raised public awareness of tax haven and the shadow economy. But this is not an isolated incident and not limited to South Korea.
International collaboration, sharing of tax information. I'm making that the headlines of my G8 summit in a month's time.
International stance is also turned adamant to cracking down on tax evaders in light of the global financial crisis. But what is a tax haven? Where are they? And why is it creating such commotion?
Typically, a tax haven can be defined as a country or a territory where it offers itself to be used as a purpose to escape tax in their residence or country.
Tax havens are not limited to a handful. There are about 80 destinations around the globe that impose little to no tax on income from companies or individuals. They also do not adequately share bank information with foreign tax authorities. About $779 billion in these regions are believed to be from South Korea, and some of the activities are deemed questionable.
페이퍼 컴퍼니를 세웠던 것은 문제가 안 되지만 그 페이퍼 컴퍼니를 세워놓고 실제 사업은 하지 아니하면서 이것을 사업하는 척하고 그를 위해서 조세 피난처에다가 돈을 국내의 돈을 갖다가 넘기는 거, 트랜스퍼하는 거, 이게 지금 문제가 될 소지가 크다고 봅니다.
To determine any suspicious activities offshore and money laundering, the South Korean government launched an investigative body in 2001, the Financial Intelligence Unit, and their work is starting to make news.
The relevant authority responsible for anti-money laundering authorities is the starting point for tracking these overseas hidden assets. In Korea, the relevant authority is the Korean Financial Intelligence Unit, and there has been recent efforts by the government to increase the role of both the Korea Financial Intelligence Unit and the National Tax Service to strengthen its role on these so-called tax evasion activities.
Crackdown on illegal financial transactions involving tax havens and the investigative work of the FIU are all part of the current administration's policy to uncover the shadow economy, also known as underground or black economy.
근데 지하 경제 양성화를 이제 왜 하는 거냐라고 이제 그런 의문이 들 수 있는데 지하 경제 양성화가 이제 첫 번째는 국민 누구나 이제 공정하게 세금을 내야 된다라는 이제 그런 차원에서 이제 하나 의미가 있고 또 하나는 이제 이렇게 걷어진 이제 세금이 새 정부에서 이제 복지 서비스를 늘리려고 하는데 넓히려고 하는데 거기에 필요한 재원을 마련하는 데에도 도움이 되겠다. 이제 그런 차원에서도 의미가 있는 거죠.
It is President Park Geun-hye's campaign to uncover the shadow economy and collect tax fairly and equally. And recently, the South Korean government said that it is aiming to collect around $27 billion in tax revenue over the next 5 years by uncovering the shadow economy. Then what is the size of the shadow economy in South Korea? Because such financial activities are not reported properly, there is no exact data, but it has been growing over the years to about 23% of the nominal GDP, and estimated to be around $290 billion. The figure compares with the US, which is estimated to be around 9% of its GDP, and Japan's 11%. However, South Korea isn't the only country after the shadow economy or corporate activities in tax havens.
OECD 같은 데서 이 문제를 지금 논의를 하고 있습니다. 전 세계적으로 이익이 조세 피난처와 소비 국가와 생산 국가가 이렇게 같이 연계되어 있는 경우 이 이익을 공정하게 쉐어링하는 방법을 현재 모색하고 있습니다. 아마 조만간 그 방법이 나올 것으로 생각합니다.
South Korea still needs to set a guideline to tackle the matter of uncovering the shadow economy and share information on offshore financial activities among related authorities.
So I think it's important for the Korean government as well to cooperate in a much more tighter fashion so that we can gather more information about these shell companies in the so-called tax havens and therefore do justified actions towards these individuals or companies that have these foreign assets in these tax havens.
South Korea is entering an era in which government welfare cost is rising, but due to the sluggish economy, financial burden is increasing as well. And it needs to come up with sustained measures to support its system.
지하경제 양성화에 대해서 이제 처음 새 정부의 그 출범 의지를 계속해서 일관성 있게 그 유지해 나가는 게 중요하다고 보고요. 어떤 갑작스럽게 그리고 이제 과도하게 어떤 정책을 추진하기보다는 좀 어떻게 보면 이제 점진적으로 그리고 예측 가능한 그런 절차라든지 그 일정을 좀 제시하는 게 이 지하경제 양성화 정책이 성공하는 지름길이라고 생각합니다.
Thus, the Korean government will need to come up with further measures to uncover the shadow economy and crack down on illegal offshore financial activities to increase its tax base and broaden social welfare systems without getting burdened with sovereign debts.
On the 25th of February, Park Geun-hye was inaugurated as the first female president of South Korea. It's now the first week of June, so it's an appropriate time to assess the efficacy of her economic policies, given that the honeymoon period of her presidency is now coming to an end. Now we have with us a professor from the Graduate School of Public Administration at Seoul National University, SNU, South Korea's elite educational institution. Professor Park Geun-hye, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's get straight down to it. You're used to grading students. We're now going to ask you to grade the president. For her economic policies thus far, does she get A, B, C, D, or fail?
As far as economic policy is concerned, no major actions have been taken during the president's first 100 days in office. However, last week, the government announced so-called Park government's household ledger, which lays out 5 years of debits and credits to keep her campaign promises. Therefore, I'd like to give a C in this category at the moment.
A C, that's quite a harsh criticism of the president. But is it not the case that it takes a while for policy to be implemented? The first 130 days is always going to be setting strategy, no?
Yes and no. Actually, the president has some kind of preparation period before inauguration. So typically, after the inauguration, the president tried to, push the major policy issues in economic area or others. But in case of the Park Geun-hye government, they have been distracted by two elements. The first one is North Korea issues, and the second one
distracted them very significantly, I'm sure.
The second one could be the scandals in the appointment of high rank officials in her government.
Okay. Well, let me take you up on economic democratization. This is the buzzword of the election. I think it's still a big buzzword now. What does economic democratization actually mean?
The core idea of economic democratization has been always the prevention or the resolution of economic power by certain families. So even in the Korea, at this time, the core issue in economic democratization is the prevention or resolution of economic power by chaebol owner family.
That sounds like just another word for bashing chaebol or bashing big business. Is that not so?
Not at all. Not at all. So as we have observed recently in the CJ Group scandal, so the chaebol owner family violate laws and evade taxes, and they use all many other skills and schemes to have illegal expedient succession of the chaebol by the second generation. So those kind of violation of the law and expedient behavior incapacitate the ground and the basic ground of market economy, such as property right, sound cooperation system, the rule of law.
But let's talk about the actual measures, the so-called economic democratization measures, which have been implementing so far. Some of these ideas include extending the retirement age and creating quotas for hiring young individuals, making the hiring system more fair and democratic for the young. Do you see, and of course some companies are complaining these are very problematic. How do you see these issues thus far?
There have been some confusions of the meaning of economic democratizations. Such measures as extending retirement ages and creating slots for hiring young people have profound impacts on companies and in labor market as well. However, these issues are not directly related to economic democratization. So treating this issue as the major economic democratization could be misleading. So,
I take your point, but some of the chaebol, SK, Shinsegae, Hanwha, have announced that they'll be transitioning some of their part-time workers to full-time workers. And of course, this has raised some criticism that they're doing this in order to head off some kind of governmental attack.
Temporary time worker issue is important issue in our society right now, and the massive transition you mentioned is encouraging. However, this is not the major issue of economic democratization, and the issue should not be used to distract people's attention to the economic democratization, the main issues of economic democratizations. Actually, I believe the major steps for economic democratization will be dealt in the June session of National Assembly. So issues includes, regulation on tunneling.
So can you explain what tunneling is for our viewers?
Tunneling is swindle by chaebol owner family from transferring business opportunity from one company to another.
Or one family member to another?
One company, I mean, it's, for instance...
Affiliated companies.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
So for instance, say company A, in company A, chaebol owner family's share is very small, but in company B, owner's share is high, like 0% to be extreme, and 100%. So then chaebol can, transfer the business opportunity in company A to company B, so they can gain from that the swindle. So that is called tunneling. So the tunneling is a big issue in Korea right now. So they use tunneling to transfer the wealth from minority shareholder to chaebol owner family, and they use that money to control, the chaebol whole groups by the next generation family members.
And what are the other issues that you think need to be dealt with, cross affiliations?
Also, structural issues such as ban on circular cross indirect cross shareholding, and the more severe punishment on serious economic crimes, and also the separation of financial companies from non-financial companies.
Okay. Let's move on then. Creative economy, this is the other sort of big buzzword of the Park administration. To yours, this is a very broad term. What does that mean, the creative economy?
At an abstract level, the creative economy can be understood as knowledge-based economy, which is characterized by the importance of creativity, innovation-based growth, and high uncertainty. So in creative industries, naturally, we may expect less job creation than in traditional industries, because in creative industry depends on quality of labor rather than quantity of labor.
What kind of positive outcomes might you expect from this very heavy focus on a creative economy?
If you expect huge job creation from creative economy or creative economy policies, then you may be disappointed. Because as I said, typically creative industry does not create a lot of jobs compared to the traditional industries. However, I guess we have no choice in Korea. The stage of economic development, because of the stage of economic development of Korea, so if we try to have more sustainable growth in the future, the creative economy, the creative industry is maybe the only option available to us. So that's the way you should go. But if you have wrong expectation or wrong preparation, so you end up with a disappointed.
Fair comment. Now, as an educator, this may be something you can address. Korea has traditionally been very good at traditional industry, metal bashing, manufacturing, very, very poor at the service sector industries and perhaps some of the more creative, nimbler industries. What kind of reforms, perhaps deeper in society, are needed to ignite a creative economy?
I basically think, the business people behave or act according to the incentive schemes or incentive system set by the government policies. So the government policy in Korea so far is well fit into the traditional industry or catch-up industry. So if we continue on that kind of approach or institutions of the government, then there will be huge gap between providing good incentive for creative industry and leaving behind in the stream. In that trend. So in my opinion, the most important thing is the change of the government's approach and the policy implementation. So they should not try. They should refrain itself from leading firms and industries, picking winners in certain firms or industries. They should try to provide environment in which fair competition prevails, and firms or people who can be creative and successful will be, they will be rewarded.
Rewarded rather than swallowed up. So again, this comes back to economic democratization. Okay. Let's move on. There's estimated to be a massive black or underground economy in South Korea. A number of, in the news right now, a number of individuals and corporations are under investigation for hiding profits in overseas tax havens. The Park government has made a big issue about raising tax revenues. Do you think the Park government is capable of bringing these massive sums back into the above ground economy? And how much do you think the underground economy is actually worth?
Government Research Institute reports that underground economy amounts to 17 to 18% of GDP in Korea. Other estimates indicate the number could be 23 or 24%. So it's huge, but it is not easy to bring the untaxed underground money into the mainstream in any country. I think, as we have seen in the CJ case, particularly if we, without prevention of borrowed name account, the policy will have a very limited impact.
Currently, in terms of big picture thinking, GDP growth, the forecasts this year are not looking too good. People are talking about sort of growth in the mid 2% range. What is your advice towards the current administration if it wants to raise both GDP growth and GNI growth, the growth of income for the average citizen?
I would like to ask the Park government to pay less attention on short-term fluctuation of economy. Instead, pay more attention on the fundamental and structural issues, including economy democratizations. In addition, it is time to consider the change of the role of the government in creative economy. So the government should refrain itself from playing a proactive player role leading firms and industries. Instead, it should focus on installing laws and regulations to establish sound market economy in which people and firms can prosper with fair competition.
It sounds to me as if you're suggesting the government needs to be very interventionist in establishing economic democratization. And if that happens, then they can take their hands off. The creative economy will appear by itself.
The government, in certain area, the government should be more proactive and more intervened. And in certain the other areas, I mean, government refrain itself. So the role of the government should be establishing good system, good laws and institutions which will provide appropriate incentive for economic agent, or which will provide the fair and level playground for all participants, all players, small, medium businessmen, as well as to big guys like Chaebol.
Understood. It's very, very difficult in South Korea because the Chaebol are so deeply entrenched in the economy and they've got so much money that many sectors of society, arguably politics, the media, the judiciary, are compromised. Given this situation, how can reform realistically take place in big business?
My answer is the people. If people get to know what really the problem is, what really should be done to cure the fundamental problems in the Korean society and economic system, then they will, make voice in elections, and they will, give more pressure to the politicians to move right direction. So my simple answer is the people.
Understood. Let's hope the president is watching the show. Okay. Professor, it's been a pleasure having you on Bizline. Thank you very, very much for airing out some pretty cool. LTE, long-term evolution, is a fourth-generation mobile telecoms network. And South Korea has the highest percentage of LTE subscribers per population in the world. Like any hot consumer technology, LTE is evolving at a rapid pace. So, what kind of services can we expect to see as LTE accelerates our mobile data transmissions to warp speed? Let's take a look.
The first generation telecommunication service began with the start of car phones in the 1980s, and wireless data communication technology has been in constant development. After going through 2G and 3G services, Korea awaits commercial use of LTE-A service, which Korea holds the original technology. It's now time to find out the 4G era and what it means for the users. This university student loves watching movies and/or videos after changing her mobile phone to LTE networks. She downloads all the movies she wants on her phone to enjoy her hobby anytime, anywhere.
3G를 사용할 때는 아무래도 내가 약간 기다린다 이런 게 느껴지는데 LTE는 좀 이렇게 느리지? 이런 생각이 들지 않게끔 빠른 것 같아요.
It only takes a minimum of 85 seconds to download a movie of 800 megabytes through the LTE network. The same size would take about 6 hours to download on the second generation system and around 10 minutes on the 3G network, so LTE is by far the fastest. With the distribution of mobile gazettes, such as smartphones and tablet PCs, existing mobile network system could not handle the amount of downloads. So came the introduction of LTE. And after implementing LTE system in 2011, users came to enjoy high-quality videos and made a full use of the cloud service. It was an evolutionizing technology that changed the 3G mobile data network. But to be specific about this revolution, LTE is still within the third generation. It hasn't fulfilled the 4G standard yet.
정지 상태나 저속으로 움직일 때 1GBps, 그다음에 고속으로 움직일 때는 100Mbps를 받을 수 있는 것을 4세대 이동통신이라고 정의를 해놨었는데 LTE라는 그 기술을 개발을 하면서 초창기에 LTE를 개발을 끝내면 실질적으로 그 스피드까지 얻을 수 있다고 생각을 했는데 막상 열어보니까 거기까지 못 간 거죠.
In theory, LTE is to reach 75 megabyte per second, but users can feel data transmission speed of only 20 megabytes per second. Therefore, when the user watches high-definition streaming videos, there are disruptions. Because it couldn't meet the ultimate speed requirement, LTE is now designated at 3.9 generation. But in September, there will be an introduction of LTE-A, which satisfies the international standard for 4G. LTE-A literally means an advancement of existing LTE. It is 2 times faster than LTE and 10-fold the speed of 3G, and truly a 4G network. For the first time in data network history, it surpassed the speed of fiber optic broadband.
LTE 어드밴스 기술은 지금 사용하고 있는 LTE의 바로 다음 세대 기술입니다. 바로 옆에 보시는 이런 고화질의 3D 컨텐츠를 이제는 고속 이동 중에도 실시간으로 스마트폰으로 다운받았을 때 끊김없는 화면을 즐길 수가 있습니다.
Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute has been leading the project for the commercial use of LTE-A. The institution had already developed the original technology for LTE-A 2 years ago in 2011. The core technology that separates LTE and LTE-A is carrier aggregation. It allows the Gazette to connect to 2 frequencies simultaneously and brings up the connection speed for the user.
CA란 2개 이상의 주파수 대역을 묶어서 하나의 주파수 대역처럼 사용하는 기술입니다. 따라서 한 사용자가 사용할 수 있는 주파수 대역이 넓어져서 그만큼 많은 데이터를 전송할 수 있습니다. 마치 도로폭을 2배로 확장한 경우와 동일한 경우입니다.
The network system has already been laid by setting up LTE service, and since LTE-A is a technology that optimizes heterogeneous network and makes ultra-wide bandwidth, it can be commercialized faster than the time it took to transfer to 4G from 3G. Finally, the users will be able to say that they are truly using the 4G network.
궁극적으로는 한 2020년이 되면 지금보다 그 통화량이 한 1000배 정도 데이터량이 더 요구될 거라고 저희가 예측을 하고 있고 지금 LTE 기술로 그것을 소화해낼 수는 절대로 없다.
Already, Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute is working on to develop technology that is after the 4th generation, beyond 4G. Beyond 4G's ultimate target is the 5th generation telecommunication technology. In order to take the leading role in 5G technology, South Korea held Forum for 5G and is investing in 5G R&D.
현재 우리나라를 중심으로 5세대 이동통신에 대비해서 초고주파 대역을 사용한 새로운 무선 전송에 대한 연구를 진행하고 있습니다. 이 무선 전송 기술을 사용할 경우에는 1인당 최대 1GBps급까지의 서비스를 제공받을 수가 있습니다.
머신 투 머신이나 디바이스 투 디바이스 통신 이런 것들이 주변에 인간이 모르는 상태에서 통신을 하는 것들이 마구 늘어날 텐데 그런 것들이 다 수화가 될 거고요. 클라우드 컴퓨팅이나 뭐 지금 가상현실로 막 나오고 있는 여러 가지 통신 방식들이 굉장히 다양하게 구현이 될 것으로 보고 있습니다.
Coming a 4G era, wireless data network system has overcome the speed of fiber optic broadband and opened doors for many more possibilities. Fast evolving wireless data network technology. It's beyond our imagination of what's to come tomorrow.
Among the many items found in kitchens worldwide, it's the humble frying pan, which has to go through the fire on a daily basis and has to put up with some very hardcore scrubbing that needs to be replaced the most frequently. So what should you be looking for when you're shopping for your newest frying pan? Pay careful attention as Bizline gives you some tips. In our Hidden Champion segment today, we'll be meeting the company that's produced the world's first double-sided frying pan.
At a recent consumer exhibition called Ambiente held in Frankfurt, Germany, international buyers flocked to check out one kitchenware brand. The product grabbed people's attention with an eye-catching design and unique function. Surprisingly, the makers of this kitchenware is a Korean company. Happycall is a leader in the kitchenware industry, with its frying pans becoming an essential item for the global consumer. The kitchen is the busiest area around the household, especially ahead of dinner time. Housewives get busy preparing food, and normally when cooking, a frying pan is a kitchen essential. So it's no surprise to hear that housewives prefer pans that are convenient and easy to clean. Housewife Choi Hyo-seo has been buying new frying pans over the years whenever food starts to stick to the bottom of the pan. After switching brands for her frying pans, she has gained confidence in cooking.
기존에 쓰던 제품은요, 요리했을 때 표면이 잘 눌러붙고 그리고 눌러붙다 보니까 요리할 때도 솔직히 조금 짜증나는 부분도 있었어요. 근데 지금 현재 쓰고 있는 제품은 표면이 매끄럽다 보니까 요리할 때도 예를 들어서 달걀 후라이를 하게 되면 계란이 이렇게 미끄러지는 그런 느낌들이 굉장히 좋았고요. 그래서 요리할 때도 즐겁고 주부로서 요리가 점점 즐거워지고 있습니다.
Happycall is a company that specializes in kitchenware, with goals set to venture into the global market. Happycall targeted domestic consumers with emphasis on brand quality at a time when imported brands dominated the Korean kitchenware market.
제가 예전에 전국을 다니면서 후라이팬을 장사를 했어요. 그때 우리나라 제품들이 사실 품질이 약하다 보니까 그 수입 상품들이 거의 대부분이 우리나라 시장이나 이 주방을 차지했었는데 그때 제가 생각했던 게 뭐냐면은 제대로 된 상품을 직접 좀 만들자. 그래서 시작을 하게 됐습니다.
A frying pan is probably the most important item when one is preparing food in the kitchen. Happycall products include a premium diamond frying pan that has been created through the latest in nanotechnology and 2,500-ton special forging process. Happycall pans have a smooth surface with excellent heat conductivity, and because of a diamond material, food never sticks to the pan, making cleaning a lot easier.
When you cook with our diamond frying pan, because of the diamond coating, the non-stick performance is very, very good. So you do not have to put a lot of oil when you cook. Normally, when you cook with the other frying pans, you have to add a lot of oil, which is not good for your health. So with our diamond frying pan, it's not necessary. You just add a little bit, or maybe with no oil, you can actually cook on it. So that's the biggest advantage of our frying pan. It makes the food very healthy.
Happycall Pan is an innovation that came after years of strenuous research and development. It was not an easy path since technological know-how was non-existent within the Korean kitchenware industry at the initial stage. Makers had to start from scratch until Happycall was invented.
We did, after a long time of studying on how to come up with a better coating for our frying pans that we could not find it in the market. We did a lot of researches, studies. We actually went to universities, talked to the professors on how to develop a better coating, which was supposed to be very strong and resistant, and it should be very good on non-stick, especially. So we ended up finding the solution, which was diamond.
Happycall is a proud company that has made the world's first double-sided pressure pan. The double-sided pan cooks food both ways, without the hassle of flipping. Heat gets trapped inside an airtight pan where food is cooked thoroughly.
우리 주부님들이 생선이나 육류를 요리할 때 가장 고민이 뭐냐면은 바로 기름 튀는 거나 연기 냄새예요. 그래서 이 고민이 연기 냄새를 잡아줄 수 있는 생선 전문 팬을 최초로 저희들이 개발을 했고요. 그리고 냄비 같은 경우에 사실은 부식이 가장 문제입니다. 이 부식을 해결하기 위해서 항공기나 선박이나 첨단 장비에서는 이 아르마이드 공법을 저희들이 냄비에 적용해서 부식은 물론이고 여기에 강도까지 높일 수 있는 아르마이드 냄비를 개발했어요. 이거는 개발하는 기간만 해도 우리가 2년 넘게 걸린 제품입니다.
Happycall boasts an ever-increasing sales amount over the years. The annual sales growth is showing a steady rise. Happycall has become a global company, exporting to some 30 countries, including the US, Japan, and China.
가장 큰 경쟁 상대는 바로 소비자라고 생각합니다. 소비자가 그 제품에 외면하거나 실망을 하게 되면 그 기업은 바로 끝이라고 봅니다. 그래서 우리의 초점은 소비자한테 있고 소비자한테 집중하는 기업이라고 생각합니다.
Kitchenware that enhances the taste of food and helps to make healthy meals for the entire family. A Korean company has succeeded in reaching the top spot as its unique product gains worldwide recognition in a competitive market flooded with global companies.
It's no secret that North Koreans have been suffering appalling economic hardships for more than 2 decades. While most news reports focus on the country's chronic food shortages, another disaster for the long-suffering North Korean populace is the appalling state of their medical facilities. In our North Korean segment, we'll be speaking to defectors and to NGO officials with experience of the country about the disturbing state of medical services north of the DMZ.
Impoverished North Korea claims to provide universal healthcare for all citizens to this day. That might have been the case some 30 years ago, but not anymore.
동구권이 무너지면서 북한이 그 수혈 원천으로 삼았던 오히려 그 원천이 이제 끊겼거든요. 서서히 진행돼 오다가 그 다음에 90년도 후반 들어서 완전히 좀 추락된 거죠. 그러니까 식량난까지 겹치고 나니까.
보건의료로 투자됐던 정부 국가 재원이 4분의 1 이상 급감하게 됐고요. 이렇게 되다 보니까 북한에 있는 의료진들의 월급을 주는 거에서도 문제가 되게 되고 약품의 공급이나 시설 장비 투자나 의학 교육에 대한 전반적인 내용이 상당히 어려움을 겪게 되면서 여러 가지 북한 보건의료의 문제가 여기서부터 태동이 되게 됩니다.
North Korea's socialist constitution says the state shall consolidate and develop a system of universal free medical service, the section doctor system, and a system of preventative medicine to protect and improve people's life and health. The section doctor system requires one medical personnel, be it a doctor, a nurse, or a pharmacist, to be responsible for the primary care of around 130 households, or approximately 400 people.
여기는 자기가 알아서 가서 찾아가야 접종하지 않아요. 북한은 아니에요. 의사가 알아서 수직 관리제거든요.
Other noticeable strengths are a 300,000 strong medical workforce and far-reaching hospitals and clinics. There is a medical university in each province, providing a steady supply of workers into the system.
북한에는 의과대학 내에 양의학뿐만 아니라 이런 동의학을 전공하는 부분이 함께 나뉘어져 있고 양의학 의사라 하더라도 침술이나 약초와 관련된 동의학적인 지식들을 기본적으로 함께 배우기 때문에 그런 부분에 대해서는 양안방을 통합하는 데 있어서 훨씬 더 실질적인 경험을 가지고 있는 의사들이 많이 있습니다.
Despite these strengths, however, many of the competent medical workers are not able to practice their profession due to lack of supplies. They are driven out to the fields and mountains to gather medicinal herbs to make traditional drugs.
신의약품은 다 고갈된 상태니까 고려약품에 매달려라. 그래서 의사들은 빈 방을 지키지 말고 산에 올라가서 약초를 캐라. 저는 지금도 산만 보면 막 진짜 지겨워요. 산만 보면.
The actual state of North Korean medical care is horrifying. Most hospitals operate without electricity, heat, or clean water.
2002년도에 첫 방북을 했는데 그때는 실은 지금보다도 훨씬 전기 상태라던가 이런 부분들이 더 많이 안 좋은 상태였어요. 겨울에는 전혀 난방이 되지 않고 너무 추워서 아이들을 치료할 수 없기 때문에 퇴원을 시키는 경우도 있고 그러고요.
창문이 깨져 있다든지 전기가 통하지 않아서 조금만 어두워져도 수술을 하기가 어렵다든지, 그리고 수액병이 체계적으로 새로운 수액병이 나오지 않기 때문에 이런 음료수병을 재활용해서 쓴다든지.
In the mid-1990s, North Korea's stock of medicine was completely drained.
96년도부터 BCG가 없어졌어요. BCG 접종이 안 되면서 이제 뭐랄까 사회적으로 결핵 환자가 막 생기고, 결핵이라는 게 예로부터 이제 빈곤병이라고 하잖아요. 그래서 그런 빈곤병부터 사회 현상에 이제 나타나더라고요.
심혈관계 질환이 가장 큰 질병 부담을 보이고 있습니다. 그러한 이유 중 하나는 북한 같은 경우는 어린 나이부터 군대 생활을 하면서 흡연을 매우 이른 나이에 시작을 하게 되고,
To suppress such serious conditions, the international community began to provide medical supplies to the indigent country since the mid-1990s. The South Korean government and NGOs also jumped on the bandwagon by sending relief aid and personnel for various cooperative development projects, including the construction of hospitals.
2004년도에 평양 어깨동무 어린이병원을 준공하면서도 실은 저희가 되게 강조했던 것 중에 하나가 병원을 설립하는 것뿐만 아니라 의료인들 간의 교류. 이게 대북 지원 사업이 단순하게 북쪽을 돕는다라는 것뿐만 아니라 통일 시대를 하자라는 목적도 있기 때문에.
Although a vast amount of international aid flowed into the communist country, it did not make it all the way to those most in need, or for free, as North Korean law states.
병원 자기 치료 예방 기관들이 간 것이 아니라 간부들 주머니에 가다 나니까 간부들이 시장에다 이걸 내다 팔았어요. 그러니까 이제 병원에 이제 치료 받으러 오면 병원 의사들은 뭐라고 이야기했어야 했냐면 뭐 이제처럼 해열제라든가 뭐 이런 거 좀 맞아야 된다, 이런 거 써야 된다 하면 시장에 가서 이걸 사 먹어라. 시장으로 이제 루트가 그렇게 되는 거예요.
Despite the communist authorities' ambiguous distribution, the rejection and deportation of NGOs from their land, the international community is still reaching out to assist them.
We encourage North Korea to work closely with the international NGO community, international organizations, Europeans, and others to ensure alternate financial services are available.
Then why does it appear that North Korea themselves are in no apparent hurry to attempt a revival of their proud socialist slogan of universal medical care?
And that's all we have time for on Bizline this week. But do join us next week. Next week, we'll be going to Incheon Harbour to look at its transformation in preparation for the cruise ship business, and also be introducing a computer you can wear. So thanks for joining us. I'm Andrew Salmon. This was Bizline. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.